Well, where's my weight? When I go into my movement, my weights start moving and loading into my back. So even though this didn't move, right?
Yes.
My weight distribution is still loading, you know.
It was my upper body turning over my lower body that applied that pressure into it. To be able to turn behind the golf ball without swaying and rotate and cover it without sliding, okay? I'd get into my backswing and then watch. My left pocket would fire back, my right shoulder would come through. And once again, without my head moving side to side, my chest was able to work instep to instep. He gave me the left leg drill. I hit countless balls on a driving range, and all of our students are looking and going, man, that's where Adam got it. I've been doing that drill forever.
Just before you hit it, you get a little bit of, like, we'll call that a 1-inch hip bump. And this is what I don't like. I don't like when people say secondary tilt, where they go like this, and then they tilt.
Yes.
Right, because the hips didn't go forward. And so bottom line is what I'm trying to do is get my sternum to the right side of my center, right? So that when I turn, I automatically load, right? So I'm like that without, if I'm kind of like this, all of a sudden, like I go like this and I'm on the left side.
I phrase it like this, and this is how all of our viewers know it, Todd. They know it as, we create the post and the brace and the spine angle that's perpendicular to my pelvis, right? I turn around my spine angle into the brace and I push off the brace to open up around the post.
In the post. Let me point this out, Adam.
Yep.
I think this is crucial because, you know, so when you did this, right, like there could be a stack and tilt person out there, not to put stack and tilt down, but if I go like this, it's like, oh, he's saying put his weight on his left side. No. Well, where's my weight? When I go into my movement, my weights start moving and loading into my back. So even though this didn't move, right?
Yes.
My weight distribution is still loading. I show this with people with Tiger all the time. I'll put a box on his hips, a circle on his head, and I'll show people how at the top, his head stays right there, but there's a shift, right, of his lower body, and all he's doing is going from his right glute to his left glute, creating the post. I can't post something if I'm not over it,
Yep.
right? So there's enough movement laterally with the lower body while the head stays right there. Well, now I'm on that left side, my left hip and left knee and left ankle all in a straight line. Now I create a post and I start to rotate around it where I've got some
And
energy.
this is, I'm so glad Todd said that because I've answered this question multiple times on Instagram and YouTube. By no means is this, and not to knock him, by no means is this stack and tilt, and here's why. Because of what the lower body hip bump does to the upper body. There's that spine angle we talk about that turns you behind the golf ball. Okay, stack and tilt will be pivoting really over that lead leg, and that's not what we're doing. We're still getting this left shoulder back to the right foot, and you can see the angle in my back right here is the same as my spine angle started. He helped me understand at a young age that the weight transfer that so many talk about, that so many end up doing this and this, was not anything done with my lower body. It was my upper body turning over my lower body that applied that pressure into it. And one thing that he helped me was he helped me understand that when I held that anchor point, it was simply a function of just my right cheek turning back into my left. What was great was understanding that pressure shift was happening with the upper body prevented me from having that sideways movement, immediately helped the low point of my swing.
Yeah,
immediately. I mean, you guys look at this, you can see where the divot is right there. One thing that I've always done, and Todd knows this, my contact has always been great. And that's because I was able to turn, and that's as good as it gets right there. And just unwind. It's mindless for me because I'm just turning around two fixed points, my left leg and my spine angle. But that spine angle is not over my left leg, which would be the stack and tilt. It's, as Todd talked about, more favoring my right side, which helps me turn behind the golf ball without sliding off the ball. Let me look at this setup. Ready? I always say, here's the post, here's the brace, here's the spine angle perpendicular to the hips.
Perfect.
Fixed points to be able to turn around. Look at the spine angle. Now, one thing that Todd taught me, Adam, you're moving in this direction fast. You're already rotating. I never had to work on, I think it's so mistaught, this lateral shift of the hips that people work on that end up causing people to slide more than they need to and then overuse their hands through impact. If I were to draw a line on the anchor point, Todd always gave me a checkpoint. Adam, you should be moving half a hip length over.
That's right.
Half a hip length over.
The hip socket lines up with the heel.
There's the post.
Yeah.
And look, everything matches up perfectly. And one nice thing about this is you can see that hip shift, he never thought about it either. The pressure's already built on the inside of his back foot simply because his chest turned over that. And now what's great about that is without ever getting in front of the golf ball, he's able to rotate around his left side and cover it. And the only thing pushing him through the golf ball to his front foot is really just the rotation of his body. our players feel like they're staying centered throughout their entire swing. I phrase it like this. We're setting up to be able to turn behind the golf ball without swaying and rotate and cover it without sliding, okay? What Todd used to do to me, and I'm gonna grab 2 alignment rods here, and this was huge, and he had 2 drills that he gave me that were just unbelievable for helping me understand this. He put 2 rods on the inside of my feet, and he helped me understand that the merry-go-round here, yeah, we had one, the turn back drill, and then the merry-go-round. If I bumped my hips and created the proper spine angle relative to my lower body, which my belt line and my spine angle are going to be perpendicular to one another. Okay, if I hike this up, spine kicks back. If I were to drop this hip right here, spine goes forward. And that helps you understand a lot about the golf swing. When this lead hip drops, and this is something we see all the time, lead hip drops, we get the reverse pivot. And the person's shoulders are then working like a Ferris wheel as opposed to a merry-go-round. Okay, so what I've learned from that was when I created that hip bump, he wanted me to always, with my head staying still, be able to turn my torso and have my chest over the inside of my back foot. Now look at my head. I never had to move off the ball in order to do that. Now, is there a little bit of movement to the right with the head that's acceptable? Absolutely, and I believe that's, sometimes people just don't have the flexibility in their neck or their body, and sometimes the shoulder just pushes the chin a little bit out of the way this way. It's not terrible to see a little bit of movement this way, but it's not that I'm trying to create that. Okay, so for me, when I set my hips, it allowed me to be able to turn behind the golf ball in the spine angle I had without moving off the ball. Now the next big thing was this. I put the club out here and I'd always do it matching my spine angle. Okay, this was the big drill that Todd taught me, the merry-go-round. I'd get into my backswing and then watch. My left pocket would fire back, my right shoulder would come through. And once again, without my head moving side to side, my chest was able to work instep to instep. Yeah. Simply because of rotation around the fixed points I created in my setup. Here, because this is the drill you gave me that just changed my golf game. I want you guys to see it. You'll remember this one. Todd said, hey, listen, this is the anchor point of your swing. This is the anchor point of your swing. So when I draw a little red dot here, he always wanted to make sure, especially with my shorter irons and my irons, that I was able to turn and not be moving off that anchor point. So, being a little bit of a slider and swayer when I was younger, like a lot of us are, he gave me the left leg drill. I hit countless balls on a driving range, and all of our students are looking and going, man, that's where Adam got it. I've been doing that drill forever. And all he did was help me create that post. And all he wanted me doing was getting to the top and working that left pocket right around the post. I would turn. I had no chance to move off the golf ball with my lower body there. So it really helped me identify that post in my swing and try to maintain the same feeling with my lower body. And that was a huge, 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 huge help for me, because I did let this drop. And what would happen to me is I would let this drop and then I couldn't turn efficiently and my arms would float to the top by themselves. The minute that I understood this was the post, I then had a personal feeling that I created in my swing. And that personal feeling to me was that I created a posted up lead leg and I had a spine angle that was also another metal pole in my body. I had 2 metal poles that I felt personally I was rotating around at all times. Right. Now, when I do this lead leg drill, that for me is simply a sensation that I'm creating around my lead leg. For my lead leg, for my post, for my anchor point. Yeah. Okay? That's something that really helped me just understand how the lower body would work. So what I then would do is, I felt I was always a good lesson taker. Todd would speak and I respected him a tremendous amount and wanted to show him that I could do it. I then would step in, and for me it felt like I was taking my femur and really putting it on top of my lead leg more. The big thing about that though, and I think Todd would agree, I always remind my players to keep their hips square when they're doing that. A lot of people will either open up to the target and cut their turn short already before they even started, and then some will interpret that they need to crank it back like this. That's not the case. I'm keeping, at first, I like keeping the sternum still to start out with. I like keeping the hips square and taking that right there. And then I feel myself with the small shift in my upper body. But you can see when I get in there every single time, I go where I'm comfortable. I then bump my hips accordingly. And for me, it just reminds me, okay, you're ready to make a nice turn to the top now.
Yeah, and you didn't lose that left post at all.
At all, right? Yeah, and I feel myself really move around it. But what's funny is, as you said, even though I feel like my eyes are very quiet and staying in one spot, I feel like my nose never moves in my swing, I feel like I'm turning around that post, it doesn't move, but I still feel a tremendous amount of pressure down the inside of my right leg, in my glute and in the right side here.
Exactly.
Simply because I've loaded and coiled.
I think what you said too is really, really critical, and a good way. You did it naturally because we've talked about it, but you know, whether you put the shaft on your hip joint, or even I'll ask someone, hey, get set up, a little bit of bump, right? Put the shaft here, make sure this is square, so when you bump, it's not this and it's not this. People do that, right? They get twisted.
Absolutely.
So it's just boom, right? And now I'm set, right? Where that left hip is here, so now it's set, that post, and I'm loaded.
I had my body checked years ago because Todd had asked me so many times, Adam, bump the hip, Adam, bump the hip, Adam, bump the hip. It was repetitive. And finally I'm thinking that, okay, I feel like I am. Why aren't I bumping my hip? Well, we come to find out that my left leg is 3/4 of an inch shorter than my right leg.
Right.
So when you guys see me set up, okay, look how I naturally set.
Yeah. Hips are
Not
to the-
ideal. This is great for a lefty.
Right.
You know, I have to consciously hike my hip up and get it higher. It's not easy, and I've actually been successful for me. If you watch, don't preach this to everybody, but I had a lift, remember, put in my my shoes. I had an orthotic that actually gave me a little bit extra that Rana had made for me that time.
Yep.
And you know, if you watch my left heel, sometimes I'm caught with almost my heel coming up off the ground a little bit, just because I'm trying so hard to hike my hip up. It's helped me a ton, but watch when I get in. You'll see it's the last thing I do. It's actually the trigger for my swing. It gets me bumped, and then I know I'm ready to go. Kind of gets me locked and loaded. So you'll see me, I set up where I'm comfortable, and that's how I'm comfortable. And then watch. That's before every single swing I make. Now I feel like once I'm there, you can see I really can work around that left side.
Yeah. People have to understand their bodies. I think it's important to get assessments. You know, you worked a lot with Rana, right?
Rana was great, yep.
Yeah, and you know, if we didn't figure that out, then we understood why it was so hard for you, but that's okay. Once you figure out your natural tendencies, the problems you may have because of our bone structure, whatever, well then you have a lot more information about what you have to overcome.
Well, that's the thing, and all I was trying to say there was, you know, my feel versus real was very, very, very different. You know, my reality versus my perception versus the reality of what was happening was just not the same. You know, I thought that this was a hip bump, and I didn't understand how much I needed to feel myself do this to get into the right spot. But what helped me was Todd always lined up a drill for me and said, hey, this is where I want your lead leg. So I sit there like this and I go, wait. Okay, now we're talking. Yeah. So that lead leg drill was big for me because all I'm doing here is with 2 on the ground, I'm creating that same post. At Porzak Golf, we take a lot of pride in having developed some of the best and most consistent golf swings on the planet. We do this through simplicity. Our Full Swing Masterclass will take you on a step-by-step, easy-to-understand process on how to get your golf swing better than ever. Join the many before you who've utilized our Full Swing Masterclass to take their games to the next level and beyond.